This episode of the Level Flight Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that Smooth Sack Summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use code THPN. Summertime and trimming is easy. Every man knows how scary it can get when going for a close shave below the belt. That's why it's easier to trust Manscaped for all the sensitive areas. The Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything you need to prepare for that summer bod. Manscaped was nice enough to send us something special. Inside the package we got, you'll find the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Their 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. We also have dual LED spotlights to provide contrast on multiple skin tones, 3 setting combs, and oh, did I mention this trimmer is waterproof? Get 20% off and free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. It's Smooth Sack Summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind. Okay, we good to go?
Always good to go.
I'm just chilling at Canada Life Center.
That's the hard-hitting analysis you listen to the Level Flight Podcast for.
Here we go.
Jets are a brisket team, low and slow for the first 2 periods, and boom, an explosion of flavor in the last few minutes of the third.
Doing all right. Better if my internet would work.
Elliott.
This is comedy. I'm Brian. I'm joined by Connor.
Hello.
And Elliott.
Hey, hey.
Wow, that was fun.
You're listening to the Level Flight Podcast.
Welcome into episode 97 of the Level Flight Podcast. This is the first episode we've had that's not LFP live in almost a month. We went back and looked, but there was some news to talk about. We'll get into that later on. I've got Brian and Elliott with me. My name is Connor. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I don't know how to act when I'm not live anymore, so we can cut out anything I want to say now.
I'll just keep looking for comments, and there just won't be anything. It's like, where's the chat today? No.
Wow, there's no audience.
Yeah.
No one's watching us.
God, how terrible.
Elliott, how you doing?
I'm good. I mean, we had to come back. There's been a bunch of news now, and more stuff's come out, and it's a busy week in Sportsville, and like every single thing ever.
Absolutely. In the NHL, every single thing is happening ever this week, and it's going to be chaotic. I'm sure we're going to have a few emergency episodes. I already told the guys, like, filming this at 9:30 a.m. when the whole day could be full of news is dangerous, but we'll see how it works out. Either way, we've got a Dylan DeMelo extension to talk about. 4-year deal, $4.9 million annually. Evolving Hockey's contract projection was actually 4 years, 4.9. So they got it right on the money. AFP Analytics, another company that does contract projections, they had it at 4 years, 5.2 million. So maybe you take that. You think they got a little bit of a pay cut. I personally think that under 5 million is a win for Dylan DeMelo and the role he's going to play going forward and the value that he provides to this team. But I'm interested in your guys' opinion. Brian, what did you think when you first saw the extension? 4 years, 4.9 for Dylan DeMelo.
Well, I mean, I saw people saying that it was a bit high, and I thought it was right on the money because, like, in his positioning right now, he's playing on your top pairing unless something drastic changes. So paying a top pairing defenseman purely based on time on ice and whatever, 4.9 million is a pretty good deal, right? So you get that, but even still, if you in the next year or so you slide him down, which you're going to have to. That's the thing. When the deal ends, he's going to be turning 35. You need to slide him down at some point, and I still don't hate the fact that you've got a rock solid defender at 4.9 playing on your second pairing, right? So I think what the Jets have done here is they've played it safe in the sense that I don't think this contract's going to hurt them. DeMelo does not play a style like, say, a Neil Pionk or a Nate Schmidt, who's a little bit more risky with how they move things, that it would really come back to bite them. I know that he had a little bit of a rough, end of season playoff run there that I think a lot of people's perceptions have shifted. But what we need to understand is Dylan DeMelo is one of the best, defenders against some of the best competition, in the last couple of years here. And he moves the puck really well. And that's something the Jets definitely need a lot of going forward here. So I don't really have any complaints at all. As you said, like under 5, I think that's, good. And, I've got no bad things to say really.
Elliott, what were your thoughts when you saw the extension?
Well, I mean, the Jets teased it for about 30 seconds before they made the post, which I thought was quite funny.
You gotta let that stew a little more.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to wait like, I don't know, at least an hour, 2. And then like next time I picked up my phone, like 5 minutes later, the extension had already happened. They'd already announced.
Well, they tweeted out. Like, wow. They tweeted out the like smoke emojis, and I forgot that that's DeMelo's nickname. So I was like,
oh, they're releasing the schedule or something.
Oh yeah, I was like, is there actually like smoke around something? Like I don't know, is something happening here? But obviously his nickname is Smoke.
It was smart that they did 4.
Right. I did realize that, and it all connected when the extension finally got announced. But either way, the actual extension itself, Elliott.
Yeah. I thought it was right on the money. I mean, you need a guy like that to come back, right? You have so many questions on the back end. Like you realistically, if I'm looking at this roster, again, armchair GM over here, if you look at the left side, you have 2 left defensemen, and I don't care who else you are. That's really all you have, right? I don't think Neil Pionk is ready, or not ready, but I don't think he's what this roster needs anymore. So when you look at the defense core, you need somebody else to add to the 2 that are going to be rock solid. So bringing back DeMelo, I think, is huge. Just like Brian said, for what he adds to your team as value and for that cap number, right? Like I'm sure he could have gotten more paid out in the open market, but it seemed like he wanted to stay here. So I think with everything that we've heard recently with players and wanting or not wanting to be here, it's nice to see that there was a player that was willing to extend and was super pumped about still being on the team.
Well, from the moment he took the podium in the exit interviews, you could tell how passionate he was about wanting to come back. It was funny too. Like he had his little comments about how now that he has another child, he's got to switch his defensive style. And, he was so loose at the podium and having a lot of, fun with the idea of coming back here. And I'm happy to see that it worked out for him, worked out for his family. And I'm actually curious, what do you guys think? Do you think signing Dylan DeMelo to a 4-year 4.9, does that essentially close the door on Brendan Dillon?
I think so.
I think that door was closed a long time. Like to me, I think that was closed a long time ago when we had reports from multiple different people that even during the season they hadn't even had a chat, right? So I kind of thought that door was closed a long time ago, but I think for sure that now that means that Dylan is gone, but I think it also means that there's another move to be made here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I think Brendan Dillon is gone. Further to Scott Billick's report from a while back, but now you paid DeMelo $5 million. You still got Pionk and Schmidt on the books. We'll see what happens with them, but you still got them for $6 million each. And I think Dylan Samberg steps into that second pairing role next year. And I think the Jets believe in him to do that. He's at $1.4 million, I think, on his contract. So you're getting really good value out of that from Samberg as well. Maybe bringing a Hanela behind Samberg on the third pair to be kind of the developmental lefty on the third pairing. But I do think Brendan Dillon is gone. I don't know if this necessarily changes that, but I do think that Brendan Dillon will be elsewhere come July 1st, which sucks because, he's a physical veteran leader. Everyone loves him. Had a career high in goals last year. It'll suck to see him go, but I think he is gone. Just quickly on DeMelo, last year, him and Morrissey outscored their opponents 62-35 at 5-on-5 last season. That's courtesy of Money Puck. 64% of the real goals. That's incredible. And you want to look at the analytics as well, because I think also there's a bit of role that might change here with DeMelo. Yes, he's great with Morrissey. Yes, he's got great chemistry with Morrissey. But I'm thinking, how nice would it be to have a pure shutdown pairing of Sandberg and DeMelo as your second pair? With Ehlers on the market, with McGroarty now apparently involved in trade talks, there might be another right-handed defenseman coming back here that could fill in that top line role. I'm not saying they're going to get a top pairing right D, but another Dylan DeMelo type that could play with a Josh Morrissey. And then that second pairing of Sandberg and DeMelo could take the tough minutes, take the team's best, and just shut them down. I don't know what you guys think about Dylan DeMelo's role going forward, more specifically next season. Do you think it's with Josh Morrissey, or do you think it's maybe down the lineup a little bit? Elliott, I'll start with you.
I think it depends on the remainder of the players that get brought in, whether that be through trade or sign. I think if you roll into the season with, you instead of adding players through free agency or trade, you're just promoting from within, then yeah, DeMelo has to be on that first pair with Morrissey. You need to make sure that you have a rock solid first pair. But whether it's for Ehlers or it's for Rutger or it's some other form of trade, if they go out and go get a first pairing defenseman right-handed, then yeah, I think DeMelo should drop to give you more depth. But again,
no Elias Salamonson love.
That's what I meant by promoting from within. Is either you sign Salamonson, you bring him in on the third pair.
Just wanted to bring that up.
Well, yeah, that's why I kind of was like, promoting from within is not the Jets' MO per se for the last couple years. Excuse me. So to me, yes, I would love him on that third pair. You run a developmental third pair with Heinola and Salamonson in a sheltered role, right? You move Sandberg up, and then you either keep Pionk there, or you deal him for somebody else. Mm-hmm. But then in that case, then you have to have DeMelo on the first pair. I think it all depends. Everything, and this is just going to sound like I'm trying to kick the can down the road, but everything all corresponds with what happens over the next couple days and into the off season on how everything's going to shake out. And I know that's literally every single off season ever, but it's hard to answer these questions when it comes to where does DeMelo play? Well, it depends on what the Jets are trying to accomplish and where else they're adding assets.
Absolutely. Brian, what do you think? Do you think he's with Morrissey next season, or do you think maybe Salamonson is the top four, Morrissey, DeMelo, Sandberg, Pionk? If that's the top four, I don't like the Jets' chances of being a playoff team, if I'm being honest, after shipping out Ehlers and all that stuff. So where do you think he is next season?
I think that barring some sort of external addition, I can only see it being Morrissey, DeMelo, and then it feels as if it was going to be, Sandberg, Pionk, as frustrating as that is. It just doesn't feel like the Jets are ready to move Pionk into sheltered minutes. Maybe that changes if he gets lit up starting the season again, or if if he moves. But I think that the Jets have done a really good job here of making it so either they have a really affordable top pairing, or they have a manageable second pairing with, if they bring in someone either via trade or free agency to play next to Morrissey, they're not going to absolutely hate the fact that they're paying a second pairing guy 4.9.
But absolutely, that's my favorite part of the deal.
Yeah, but if he is the top pairing, you're getting a good deal on a top pairing defenseman to play with your best defenseman. So I think that they've kind of future-proofed it in the sense here that regardless of if they bring someone in or not, that contract in that defensive group looks good, but it gives them the flexibility. Because if you're paying a guy over 5, you're reluctant to probably move him off that top pairing. That's just the politics of how things are, right? So that's the thing. Like, you could tell it was difficult for them to play a 5-point whatever guy with Schmidt. Pionk has always been a struggle, and moving him down to the thirds is seemingly something that they're not willing to do. But with DeMelo, if you move him to the second pairing, you bring in a guy who's making 5+ to play next to Morrissey, it doesn't look bad at all.
Yeah. Absolutely. I that's my favorite part of the deal, is that 4.9 number, because it gives you the flexibility to move him down to the second pair. And a second pairing of Dylan DeMelo and Dylan Sandberg at 1.4 million and 4.9 annually, that's still an affordable. there would be no goals on
Yeah.
either side of the puck. But that's still a really affordable second pairing. Like, you look around the league, teams are paying more than $6 million combined for their second pair. And then you look at the top pair, how much value you're getting on Morrissey, whoever you bring in. Even with DeMelo up there, like you said, it's still a good value. I bring up that question because a lot of people, or a lot of what I read on Twitter yesterday was, yes, Dylan DeMelo had a rough playoffs, and a lot of people were saying the Jets paying Dylan DeMelo to be on the top pair is sort of part of the problem, and that the fact that Dylan DeMelo is a top pairing defenseman is the issue. That was the large negative side of the DeMelo deal that I saw on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw that as well, but a lot of people were saying like, yeah, DeMelo's great for the regular season with Josh Morrissey, but come playoff time, he's going to get exposed. That's the issue with the Jets, yada, yada. I think that's why I think him being on the second pair, then bringing someone else with Morrissey is the ideal route in an ideal world, armchair GM, like Elliott said. But I don't see it happening. And I do think, again, Ehlers could get traded for Ryan Pulak tomorrow, and we don't know, right? But we'll see what happens. Well, let's take a quick break from that. Let's take a quick break. You're going to hear a word from DraftKings. When we come back, we're going to talk about Paul Maurice's comments after winning the Stanley Cup. We're going to talk about the draft. We're going to talk about free agency. And we're going to ask whether or not the Jets will be picking in the first round on Friday night. So stick around at episode 97 of the Low Fly Podcast. We will be right back.
Bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. The Florida Panthers may have been victorious this season, but it's never too early to start thinking about who you might pick as your Stanley Cup champion next season. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/ice for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back into episode 97 of the Level Flight Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you're here on podcast, leave us a rate and review down below. If you're here on YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss videos like this in the future. We'll be coming out every Sunday morning, 9 a.m., LFP Live. Come join us, drop by, drop a chat, let us know your thoughts on whatever we're talking about at the time. And let's further get into the Connor McDavid episode, but they lost. He got the Conn Smythe, but they lost in Game 7 after a miraculous comeback down 3-0, tied the series. It was a 2-1 win for the Panthers in Game 7, and Paul Maurice wins his first ever Stanley Cup. And if you haven't seen the clip already, you're probably not chronically online like the rest of us. But Paul Maurice, after winning the Stanley Cup in an interview with Kyle Bukauskas of Sportsnet, basically said, if I could have one thing more, it would be for the Winnipeg Jets to win the next Stanley Cup. Massive shock. I for one was watching the game on a delay, so I missed this whole craze on Twitter and all that stuff. But what were your guys' thoughts when you were watching the Cup celebration? You saw Maurice say that like just randomly. I mean, I guess Kyle did ask about his departure from Winnipeg in the question, so maybe that kind of put Winnipeg in his brain, and then he obviously said that. But I was not expecting any mention of Winnipeg, let alone he hopes they win the Stanley Cup. Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the sentiment because obviously, like, there's a lot of deep connections, to the city for him. And yeah, the question itself was like, yeah, after you left Winnipeg, you thought you were going to be in a fishing career. Mm-hmm. So like, as you mentioned, yeah, it was like, it wasn't like totally unprompted, but it felt a little bit strange to me. I don't know, like it just felt like, well, firstly, I think the one that was weird was win the next Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Which when you're coaching a team non-zero chance that if you've won the cup the year before, you're going to be competitive the next year. So like hypothetically, let's say the Jets make a miraculous cup run, get to the cup final. Is he going to be like, actually, I lied. I really hope they don't win.
And it's Jets Panthers. And it's like the first question of the presser, Paul, will you retract your statement from last season saying you want the Winnipeg Jets to win the next Stanley Cup? He'd probably have an all-time answer, let's be honest. But
it's Paul Maurice.
He is so media savvy though that he knew that Kyle is from Sportsnet and people are from Winnipeg watching it, so he knows that he's striking a chord with people because they're going to be listening. That's what he's good at. That's the thing. He's one of the best in front of the media in the entire league, if not for the last while. But no, yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys thought of it because I mean, on the surface level, it was nice for him to put it out there. It just felt a little weird in the moment.
Absolutely. Elliott, what did you think?
Well, my first thought was, hold on, let's rewind that. So we had to go back. Yeah. Because I was watching it with girlfriend and her family. And we were all like, whoa. Are we serious right now? Yes. It sounded very prompted. But when you think about the entire situation that transpired, it wasn't Paul leaving at the end because there was an ultimatum. He didn't get fired. It was he left like in the midst of everything. Yeah. Saying that this team needs a new voice. It was something that, and as much as people will say, oh, that was his out, he did that so that he didn't get fired. I don't think I realistically think Paul Maurice would still be head coach of the Winnipeg Jets right now if he hadn't left. I truly believe that. I think that there was some sort of connection there between him and Chevy. And so I think with Paul leaving, I think that actually was him saying, you know what, I've done a lot for this hockey club. I don't want to do any more damage than I've already done to this situation. And so for the betterment of this team and this franchise, I think everybody needs a fresh start. And so I think that him actually saying that, maybe not the next Stanley Cup, but I do think that he truly wants Winnipeg to win a Stanley Cup while he is still alive and around. I truly think that was his statement of saying, I haven't forgotten about you guys. I have a connection with this city and this team. I want you guys to be successful.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, again, were shocked that, like you alluded to there, that he has this goodwill for Winnipeg or has this positive outlook on his time in Winnipeg. And I forget who brought it up, but it was a good point. Before the Jets hired him, he wasn't sure if he was going to be an NHL head coach ever again. And then he comes to Winnipeg. He coaches for 6 or 7 years, takes the team deep into the Western Conference Finals on that one run, playoffs multiple years. They won another round the COVID year when he was around, and then he left the next year. But he revitalized his career here in Winnipeg. He's probably very thankful that the Jets gave him a chance, and probably feels bad at the same time for walking out in the middle of the battle, right? In the middle of the season when they were one of the top teams in their division and then ended up missing the playoffs that year after Dave Lowry stepped in, right? So the fact that he said it is shocking, but what he said in the context of his career and what happened in Winnipeg, the fact that it was kind of a stepping stone to the Florida job, to where he's now gone to back-to-back finals and won the cup. I think he's probably very, very grateful for Mark Chipman, Kevin Cheveldayoff, giving him that chance and allowing him to prove that he's still an NHL head coach. And then he just walked away from all of it. And it's probably damn, I really wish I didn't. I really wish Winnipeg, the best going forward. So it makes sense. Do you guys have anything else on the cup finals in general? Maurice, Brian, anything? Elliott? No?
Just Nothing the else? Florida Jets. That's all it is.
Kevin Stenlund is a Stanley Cup champion.
Dmitry Kulikov is a Stanley Cup champion.
The ones that
Dmitry Kulikov with a primary assist on the game-winning goal. Are we really?
Oh man!
Actually, the even crazier thing was Cody Ceci had an assist, a
That
primary
was a
assist.
dime too.
That
was a
that
dime.
that
Sauced over the stick of Gustav Forsling onto
was
Matthias
the best
Janmark's
pass of his
skate.
career. He will never have another pass like that ever again.
Game 7, Cody
Ever.
Ceci. Don't underestimate it. Anyways, that was a great game. It was so much fun from start to finish to watch. Last thing we want to talk about. The draft is this week, free agency is this week. We'll leave free agency for LFP Live on Sunday because it'll be the next morning or the next afternoon when free agency opens. So that'll be
We'll probably have
kind of
some
the
of
bulk
the
of our-
like, we've heard that
We're
such and
hearing,
such is
yeah.
going to sign with so and so on, whenever it opens. Because like that
This
night
amount of
before is
money.
always like someone gets information and they're like, hey, guess what? And then the next 3 months we hear about did someone break the tampering laws?
Exactly.
And then
'Cause,
it
like,
goes away.
There's deals that are like agreed to or like reported days in advance of the legal tampering period of free agency.
Brian, it doesn't go away. What happens is 3 years later, a third round pick is taken away
Yes,
from the team after that player's already made an impact for many seasons for that hockey team.
Exactly. Anyways, we will leave that discussion to Sunday morning. Join us for LFP Live on YouTube. But for right now, I want to ask the guys, are the Winnipeg Jets drafting in the first round on Friday night? Whether it's Nikolai Ehlers, Rucker McGroarty, Elliott Freeman, and Chris Johnston, both re-upped on the McGroarty thing, saying that it's going to happen before the draft. Marat said that as well in his article. So there's multiple insiders now
Time's ticking.
saying that the McGroarty trade's going to happen before the draft. I think the Jets are picking in the first round on Friday. What do you think, Brian?
I think I'm right there with you. I think they have multiple avenues to get there. That was another thing that Friedman had said as well, that the Jets are interested in getting back into the first round because obviously they don't have one. They pick 37th. But I think that between either McGroarty or Ehlers or both, I don't think there's a situation where they don't pick in the first round with what they're possibly going to be moving. It just seems like that's the more likely situation. Now it's just a matter, I think, of how high. Because essentially anything between 25 and 10, I think is, fair game for some teams to move. Within the top 10 is a little bit, iffy. But I think anywhere between 25 and 10 is the possibility for some sort of move to come back and bring a first round pick to the Jets here.
Absolutely. Elliot, are the Winnipeg Jets picking in the first round on Friday night?
I think, like Brian said, the only way that they do that is if either McGroarty or Ehlers is dealt, unless Kevin Cheveldayoff works some magic and uses 37 to go and move up with other picks. But you see that more in the NFL. It normally doesn't happen in the NHL too often, at least in these higher, in higher up in the draft. But I think with what we know about Ehlers' and Rucker's value, I think it's like Brian said, it's totally possible for them to move anywhere within. I can't remember who it was, but somebody was saying that McGroarty's value is the pick that he was taken at plus a little bit more. So obviously, was he the 14th pick?
14th, yeah.
14th, yeah. 14th. So realistically,
I've seen people throwing like 10 out, like the New Jersey's 10th overall as like a comparable value, and I don't know if I disagree with that.
No, I actually would agree with that, because if you think about it, within that 10 to 14 range, like if you're getting his at value, which it was his draft pick, then that's the 14th pick. So if it's a little bit more than that, then 10 is totally possible. But at the same point, I think that as much as they're saying that Rucker gets dealt before the draft, I do also think there's a possibility that because the Jets don't theoretically actually have to deal him right now, I do think that it would be Ehlers as the player to get moved. I think it's more likely that it's Ehlers, that they use Ehlers in 37 to go up into that first round and then maybe get something else back as well. Something inside of me is telling me that, and I could be completely wrong. I've said this before on the show so many times. But I just have this weird feeling that it's not Rucker that gets dealt right now, and he gets dealt later in the offseason for somebody else.
Okay, interesting. I I said this a few weeks ago on an LFP live as well, and my mindset hasn't changed on Ehlers. With each passing day, and if we get through the first round of the draft and he's still a Jet, he's coming into training camp as a Jet. Like I think the time to trade him is like right now. Like if you see a trade in these next 3 days for Ehlers, it'll make sense. But I think if we get through Canada Day on July 1st and Ehlers is still a Jet, either you'll see an extension months from now, or you'll see a line A type thing where he plays a few games of the season and then gets traded, or traded at the deadline. But either way, if he makes it through the weekend, I think he shows up to training camp as a Jet. And I think there's going to be all these quotes where he's just like Scheifele and Hellebuck, but different, where he's just, I got 1 year left on my deal. I'm just here to play hockey, here to win a Stanley Cup, keeping it all professional. And then either you'll see the Scheifele and Hellebuck side of it, or you'll see the Patrick Laine side of it, where one side got traded or one side extended. We'll see. But I think this is really, I don't know who's feeding the McGroarty's getting traded before the draft thing to these insiders, because they're being told that. But
yeah,
how can they be so sure that it's going to be so imminent? I don't know. That's a shock.
See, I wonder if it's being fed, and also the context of the longer they wait on McGroarty, the more people will be able to identify their own needs and fill them elsewhere. And then suddenly the bidding war is less urgent for other teams, right? So I think the longer it goes, the worse it is for the Jets, purely because he's a guy, if you deal him in and around the draft, you're getting more certainty than what you're getting out of a guy who you pick 14th, for example. You know what his development path has been. You know that he's ready to step into a pro situation. But you don't get that out of a guy you draft 14th this year. So it's like you're essentially upgrading a pick that you already have with a guy who theoretically you've selected as that guy, right? So I think the further you get into the offseason, the more teams have already sort of decided, okay, no, this is the guy who we're going to, roll with. People will sign someone in free agency. They're like, okay, we don't need a young guy to, come in there. And then suddenly the teams start dwindling a little. I think once you get through the draft, though, I truly think that the Jets may have a harder time finding that, higher package with, that top pick.
That's a good point. And also, like, dev camp is probably the week after free agency, or the week of free agency, like that
Does he show up?
No. Regardless, I don't think he does. Like, even if he's still a Jet through the weekend, I don't think he's going to be at dev camp, for this reason, that the two sides are playing this game at chicken.
I mean, if nothing else, he probably just doesn't want to deal with the press.
Right. No, exactly. And the Jets probably don't want him to deal with the press. The
Jets only make it look worse on both sides.
Yeah. If McGroarty shows up to dev camp in July and is like, I'm really fed up with how this organization is handling my situation, like at development camp, like that would be nuts. I don't know. That would just be nuts. So I don't
fun development camp ever.
Yeah.
Or most intriguing, I guess.
The rest of the prospects, who cares?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like everyone's going to be so distracted with McGroarty that some guy could come in who people, maybe rated a little bit lower, has an unbelievable camp. No one's going to remember it because it's going to be the Rucker McGroarty stories.
Exactly.
Jacob Julian.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that'll actually be intriguing. But if McGroarty did show up, it would be like the most covered dev camp in like Jets history. But anyway,
in NHL history.
I think NHL history. Yeah. Either way, there's going to be a very busy couple days here. The draft is Friday. Stay tuned to our socials, because we might have an emergency episode here and there if the McGroarty deal does go down before the draft. If the Ehlers deal goes down before the draft. If nothing happens and the Jets don't pick in the first round and everyone's still a Jet, then we'll probably just leave it till LFP Live on Sunday. But if there's something to talk about, we'll talk about it. So at Level Flight WPG on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we'll have all the content there. And leave us a review down below. Hit the subscribe if you're on YouTube. Thanks for listening to episode 97. We will catch you Sunday or before then, if news drops, and you'll hear when news drops from all of our Twitters, which are listed below us on the screen here. Have a good couple days. Enjoy the draft if the Jets are picking, and we will see you all before then or Sunday for the next episode of LFP. See you.
Peace.